Hello, everybody. I am about to read the greatest fiction mystery of all time. Here we go. The Time Shack. Rex was a boy in April of 2012. He was going through his room looking through a box of mysterious things. He had no idea what he was getting into, and when he was about to uncover some cool things all children at the time wanted to see, he raised his head and saw a man. In 1860, Henry Horsey was born in a small town that had not been named yet. It was about 70 miles north of San Diego. His parents said that Henry was a mysterious boy and he would go to the back of the shed that his family lived in and disappear for days. He would come back in different clothes than he had wore previously. Henry did this until he was about 12 years old. In the year 1882, at the age of 22, Henry Horsey had disappeared from home for 44 days. When he came back, he had talked about a small town a few miles up the road that had been created. It was near the lake that the family shed was. People were calling it Lake Elsinore. His parents said in a 1921 interview that in 1888, when they first visited the town, it had a lot of the same details that Henry had described. Flash on to 30 years later. 1912. A 52-year-old Henry Horsey was living near Main Street in Lake Elsinore. Every morning, a kid would come over to deliver the newspaper and glass bottles of milk. One day, on April 15, 1912, it was the opening day of Henry Horsey's successful milk bar. About 44 minutes into the business day, a kid came barging into the bar. He had informed Mr. Horsey that the Titanic had sank while it was on its way to New York. This bothered Henry a lot. He had recognized the kid. It was the same boy who had been delivering the milk and newspaper to his house since 1910. When Henry Horsey went on break that day, he stepped onto the train that stopped at the station across the street from the bathhouse. He would never return. Later that day, the boy from earlier got off work and decided he was going to go grab a bottle of milk from the popular bar. When he stepped inside, it was empty. No one was there. The boy ran out of the bar and straight to a house he knew very well. When the boy knocked on the door, he was greeted by Frank Heald. Franklin Heald was one of the founders of the town of Elsinore. He had informed Mr. Heald that the man who started the milk bar was gone. Mr. Heald told the boy that he had spoken to the man's parents and that he should not be worried because as a child, Henry Horsey had gone missing all the time. The next day, Mr. and Mrs. Horsey had taken over the business that their son Henry had started. The milk kid came and bought 32 shot glasses of milk. While the kid was chugging away at the milk he had bought, he lifted his head and looked out the window. He saw a man and darted out of the bar. When he went outside, the man was gone again. Henry's parents talked about the incident in the 1921 interview. They said that when the kid came back in, he did not say anything. They asked him many times and he never would say who he was. But the boy knew. He was convinced that he saw Mr. Henry Horsey. On October 14, 1912, the kid was visiting the Lakeview Hotel, and when he was sitting in the lounge area, noticed a box tucked away under the staircase. It bothered the kid. He grabbed it and opened it, and there was a strange thing that the kid had never seen before. He pressed a button, and the thingy turned on. Franklin Heald was in the office of the hotel. The kid took it to him. They eventually opened up some photos, and there was a photo of an old man. The date of the photo was April 15, 2012, 100 years in the future. The old man looked familiar to the kid. Then it hit him. The old man was the guy he saw walking outside the milk bar on April 16, 1912, but an older version of the guy. Years go by. The parents of Henry Horsey moved to Los Angeles. They did an interview to get their son's story out. It had been 9 years since Henry stepped on that train and never returned. The kid was living in Elsinore. He had been living in the Lakeview Hotel all these years. One day he went to the milk bar to get a glass of milk. He never made it. Rex. He raised his head and saw an old man, possibly about 50 years old, or could have been older. Rex asked his name. The man replied, Henry Horsey. He walked out of Rex's house and Rex never saw him again. Rex went out the door. Once Rex's parents got home, they could not find him. They would never see him again. That happened in 2012. In 1910, a 50-year-old Henry Horsey applied to have milk delivered. He was denied. This angered Mr. Horsey and he disappeared for a few days. When he returned, his parents had figured it out. Henry Horsey was a time traveler. When Henry disappeared in 1912, the town of Elsinore was shocked. No person had ever gone missing. When the phone was discovered by the kid, Franklin Hill took it to the Horsey family, and they said that the man in the photo was in fact Henry Horsey. Franklin Hill cannot believe it. Mr. Horsey had brought a futuristic piece of technology from the future. He got a knock on his door. It was a kid. Kid had some news. Kid sat down at the table and told Mr. Hill his real name, Rex. He said that he knew Henry Horsey's secrets. Franklin Hill asked Rex about it, and Rex said that he was currently living in the future, his life to the fullest. He didn't know what year he was in, but Franklin Hill would be long gone by the time he came back. Henry Horsey came back. Franklin Hill had many questions, but other things to do that day. Rex and Franklin Hill set up a meeting at the milk bar the next day. Next day, April 16, 1921, Rex arrived at the milk bar. A few minutes later, Franklin Hill arrived. Rex bought Mr. Hill some chocolate milk and bought himself some strawberry milk. Rex said that on April 15, 1912, when he informed Mr. Horsey that the Titanic had sank, Mr. Horsey had some issues with the news. Rex informed Mr. Hill that he heard Henry went to the back room and heard a glass bottle smashing, but that wasn't it. In 1932, Franklin Hill passed away, and just like Rex had predicted, Henry Horsey had not returned. Many years later, in 1984, Rex, who was now 84 years old, was hanging out at Henry Horsey's old house on Lewis Street near Main Street, Elsinore. He looked out towards the lake and saw a very old man sitting on the shore looking towards the lake. Rex made his way towards the lake in his Chevy Cavalier. He greeted the old man. The old man looked up and recognized him. Rex asked how old the man was. The old man replied, 124 years of age. Rex was actually surprised. How could he live that long? And you are 84 now? Asked the old man. Rex nodded his head and asked how he knew that information. This seemed to frustrate the old man. Rex then asked how he knew him. The man replied, My name is Henry Horsey, and I believe you delivered milk to my house when you were little. Henry Horsey had returned. He was 124 years old and very much alive. Rex invited Mr. Horsey to Franklin Hill's old house to ask him one very important question. When they got to the house, Henry Horsey told him all. So the question is, what happened to Henry Horsey on April 15, 1912? Henry woke up that day and had a gut feeling that something had happened to his ship. When Rex barged into the bar and told him that the Titanic had sank, Henry Horsey's heart sank as well. He went into his office and his favorite glass bottle fell off the desk and fell and smashed everywhere. This sent Henry into a hella deep depression. He was done with the world. He had an idea. Later that day, he went to a train station and boarded the train to Los Angeles. 5 minutes into the train ride, he was harassed by some guy and they threw him off the train. This greatly hurt Henry Horsey, so he went to a doctor, got his broken arm fixed, and went back to Elsinore. He walked by the infamous milk bar one last time, and he decided to go to the post office to write his parents a letter, and then he was gone. Henry popped up in the year 2001, got married, and had a child named Rex. Then he went to the year 2020 to go to his child's graduation, but his child was not there. This confused Henry Horsey. Then he lived on, and on January 1st, 2022, he died from the COVID-19 pandemic, and he got reset in the year 1932. He lived in the Lewis Street house for 15 years. He was very sad to hear that Franklin Heald had died as well. Henry Horsey lived a quiet life, and every morning he would sit on the shore of the Lake Elsinore and reminisce on his chaotic life. Rex was shocked. He could not believe it. Mr. Horsey had lived in Lake Elsinore for 54 years. When Rex realized that Henry's Lewis Street house was for sale in 1946, he bought it and had just lived 3 houses away from Henry Horsey. Rex passed away on April 15, 2012, exactly 100 years since the disappearance of Henry Horsey. He was 112 years old. At Rex's funeral, Henry noticed a familiar little boy. It was little Rex. Henry smiled and said, "I am so proud of my boy. He was a time traveler like his old man." After Rex passed away, Henry moved back to the Lewis Street house, and on January 1st, 2022, he passed away from the COVID-19 pandemic. He was 162 years old. He had died the same exact day as his time-traveling death. He would never reset, and the loop of Henry Horsey had ended. The end. I hope you all enjoyed that story right there. I wrote it all by myself. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. And yeah, comment what you think down below. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys later.